Hi, my name is Kamish. I work for ITacademy.in. In this video, I'm going to explain to you how to work with the fuzzy lookup transformation. So, while watching this video, we assume that you have already watched the lookup transformation video. So now we'll see the differences between the lookup transformation as well as the fuzzy lookup transformation. See, in general, lookup transformation, you know that it actually does an equi-join. So last time in this video, I was actually doing some kind of equi-join between the sales order details tables product ID with the sales LT dot products product ID. So the equi-join was very successful with the lookup transformation, and also you should notice the product ID is an integer type. So especially if you have an equi-join on numerical fields, there's no problem. Everything will be okay. But what if you have a scenario wherein you have to do some kind of comparisons on alphabetical data and where the spellings may not be matching exactly, and that's the time lookup transformation fails. So in such scenarios, you can actually use the fuzzy lookup transformation. So to explain you this concept, I'm actually trying to create a new package, and I call this package as FuzzyLookupDemo.dtsx. So what's the scenario in this example? You can see here I have a flat file with me. It's a text file, whereas I have three different fields like last name, I've got first name and title, and it has got approximately 22 records. What you have to really focus on, look at the title of this guy called as Henderson, for example. It's like case service rep dot. So whoever was actually feeding the data, they were actually making some inconsistencies while entering the data into the system. Whereas this guy for worker, this is customer service representative, so somebody typed it fully. And this is assistant manager, and this is regional manager. You can see somebody was typing MGR, somebody was typing MGR dot. Sometimes you type it in full. So what's happening here? In this flat file, we've got some people whose title was actually incorrectly typed, and in some places it was actually typed correctly. So in my SQL Server, you can notice I am ready with a small table called as occupation table, which is having occupation ID and then the occupation label. So if I see the guy here, Henderson, for example, whose title is service rep dot, I don't have any title in my organization where the title is actually service rep dot. So in this case, service rep dot should be matching to customer service representative. If I use lookup transformation says this title is not obviously matching to this title, so you can't reach this occupation ID. So what lookup cannot do for you, that's what fuzzy lookup will do for you. So to explain you this concept, let me actually take a data flow task onto my control flow, double click on the data flow task. I have a flat file source here. I can double click on my flat file source and I can create a new flat file connection manager pointing to the file that I have just shown, which is pretty much on my desktop. It's called as fuzzyexample.txt, and that has got column names in the first row. Also you can see in the columns, and these are the fields that I have in this flat file with some wrong spellings. Perfect. And now in the columns you can see I have these three titles here. Nice. Now what I'm trying to do, I'm actually going ahead and then trying to put a lookup transformation initially. And then I'm connecting the flat file source to my lookup transformation. When I double click on my lookup transformation, I'm using the OLEDB connection manager. It is asking you specify how to handle rows with no matching entries. So obviously if you see, this service rep dot is nowhere matching to any of the occupation label that I have in the SQL Server table, so the matching will fail. So in such case, I can tell the system redirect such rows to no match output. So whenever there's no matching, it actually passes that record to the no match output. I'm using the VolleyDB connection manager, and the connection is going to be my AdventureWorks database, and then the table is going to be my occupation table. And then in the columns you can see we've got the title. This title I will be linking it with the occupation label, and then I'm selecting the occupation ID as well as the correct occupation label from the occupation table. These are the three fields that I have in the flat file, and these are the two fields that I have in the SQL Server table. This title is having incorrect spellings, whereas this occupation label is having the perfect spellings. Now all those incorrect spellings should also be converted into the proper spellings at the end of this package execution, and simply say OK. Now this lookup will actually find out all those records where the titles are actually mapping well to the titles that I have in the SQL Server table. Now if you see the third one, the customer service representative, that's exactly a perfect spelling, and it's matching to this customer service representative, and then whose ID is the occupation ID 1. Whereas for the another guy like district manager, that's actually correct. So that means there are some records out of those 22 records I have in this flat file where the spellings are actually correct. So wherever the spellings were correct, that will be processed by the lookup transformation. So let me actually put some kind of union all transformation and then connect this lookup transformation to the union all. So what is it you're passing to this union all? The ones that actually matches. The ones which cannot be processed by the lookup transformation, I'm giving that to the fuzzy lookup transformation. So I'll be connecting the lookup transformation to the fuzzy lookup. So this is taking the lookup no match output records. So whatever records this lookup transformation cannot match, like this kind of inconsistent titles, will be given to the fuzzy lookup. Now we need to configure the fuzzy lookup by double clicking here. What's the table name that you wish to use? Is the occupation table as a reference table name, and then in the columns you will be linking the title with this occupation label, and you will be returning the occupation ID and then the occupation label. What is really very essential is setting the properties in the advanced tab. So the token delimiters have to be typed by you. So basically what do you mean by token delimiters? Means working with fuzzy lookup is not that easy thing. Basically one has to really study what kind of mistakes people have done while entering the data into the system. I should say the other way, like how consistently they were inconsistent. It's a pretty surprising statement, but that's how. You see, for example, service rep dot, so that somebody was using dot to end the title. Somebody was using spaces and dots as well. So I have figured out mainly people were using dots and then spaces as delimiters. So I will say dot as my delimiter and also spaces as my delimiter here. And what is very important with the fuzzy lookup is the threshold. Obviously it's not a one-time effort, so one has to do trial and error methods to really set the threshold value to see the similarities in those spellings. So for us these two are different titles, but at the end of the day I want these two to be considered as only one title. So there's a kind of artificial intelligence what fuzzy lookup uses internally to give that behavior to us. So overall I have made the token delimiter as spaces and dots, and I have set the threshold as 0.5 because I tested a couple of times. So initially it was like 0.70 and then to 60 and then to 50, and then I verified everything was pretty nice. Now I click on OK again. So the output of the fuzzy lookup also I'm giving it to the union all. Now union all is receiving some records from the lookup, and union all is receiving some records from the fuzzy lookup. So what should be the destination here? Already if you can see I have with me another table called as employee roster that's having employee ID as integer. I got the last name, first name, occupation ID and occupation label. Basically, this last name and first name and then the occupation label are pretty much in the text file, but we have some wrong titles here, so that I need to get the right title into the occupation label. So I will be doing a comparison between the flat files title and then between the occupation label in the occupation table. If these two are matching, I need to get the occupation ID. So that will be done by the fuzzy lookup. So the output should be going to some SQL Server table. So I will be double clicking on the union all transformation. You can see these are the fields that will be going to the destination. I'll be simply connecting the union all to my OLEDB destination, and I can double click on the OLEDB destination. And what should be the destination table? The employee roster table that I've just created. And then in the mappings you can see everything is nice. I don't have to supply any value for employee ID because I have actually made this employee ID as an identity field when I was creating the table, so I don't have to supply any value to the employee roster, sorry, to the employee ID. Everything is nice, say okay. So now you understood here. Lookup, out of these 22 records that I have with me, there were some 12 records with the correct title because I know that, and there were some 10 titles which were incorrect in this scenario. So what happens? Those 12 which were correct goes to union all. Those 10 that were incorrect, Lookup cannot help me on that. So it simply passes on those 10 incorrect title records to the fuzzy lookup. Now fuzzy lookup uses its intelligence on those 10 records and then tries to match those records with the correct spellings in the occupation table and gives it back to the union all. And the combined records, 12 records from here and maybe 10 records from here, finally goes to the my employee roster table. Everything is nice. Let's test the package. So now you can see there were some 22 records here and there were some 12 records here and 10 records here. Hello means it's actually still processing. Let me remove the breakpoints and then let me test this by saying start without debugging, so that my package runs continuously without getting debugged anywhere. And finally, I'm done with the package execution. If I can come back to my SQL Server and then if I can refresh what I have in the employee roster, you can now see all the 22 records that I have with me. I have the correct spellings. That's the beauty of fuzzy lookup. You can see this guy, Henderson Harry, whose title is actually Service Rep dot, whereas here Henderson Harry, the title is actually Customer Service Representative. So in that way, though the spellings were never matching to the actual spellings that I have in the table, fuzzy lookup is still able to link these titles with the titles that I have in the occupation label. So that's how fuzzy lookup will do some additional job what lookup cannot do. What lookup cannot match, it gives it to the fuzzy lookup, and fuzzy lookup, based on the frequency and the threshold values and the token delimiters, it tries to match those values what we have in the flat file with the values in the SQL Server table. That's how fuzzy lookup does some pretty brilliant job. Thanks for watching. If you wish to buy some full-length videos, please visit itacademy.in. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.